In a world where the Houston Texans have more playoff wins this year than the Dallas Cowboys, comes the Fourth Down Countdown podcast. And as always, it's your two coaches, Corey and Ryan. Now let's kick it off with the opening drive first down.
Welcome one, welcome all. It's the Fourth Down Countdown podcast. And as always, it's Coach Corey.
And Coach Ryan.
And we hope you guys just had a great weekend of football. We know we did with the divisional rounds. They picked up the action this week. It was a lot better than last week, wasn't it, Coach?
It sure was.
Yeah, we had the Atlanta Falcons moving on, and they will face the Green Bay Packers at home. And, of course, New England wasn't looking the greatest, but they still got the job done against a subpar, to be nice, quarterback. But also Pittsburgh kicking it, literally.
Kicking their way to victory.
Yep, against Kansas City. But besides that, we had a good time at our end-of-the-year final football fantasy party, didn't we, Ryan?
Yeah, it was a good time catching up with the guys and just reminiscing at some of the moves that were made in the during the season, and congratulating the champion and giving some hell to
the loser.
To the loser of our league.
Oh yeah, and it was fun. We were sitting at a B-Dubs eating and watching the Falcons game. It was pretty entertaining watching the Seahawk fan over in the bar nearly hang himself after a couple bad plays they had there. But we'll get into those games in a little bit. But since this is the opening drive, we got a couple little skits for you. We're going to start this week with the Anthem of the Week. And this week we have American Idiot by the band Green Day. And this one goes out to the now Los Angeles Chargers, formerly of San Diego. If you guys didn't catch it, the debacle of their move to L.A. started off with the logo unveiling. Ryan, what did you think of their logo? The cheap ripoff of other logos.
Well, when I sent you the picture, you said it looked like a damn clip art, and I guess that's the best way to describe what it looked like. I think they got enough hell. I think they eventually changed their logo.
Yeah, I think it's on their third try at a logo.
They'll get it right one of these days.
Yeah, I've seen other people online, just other ones submit their logos, what they thought, and they look 100 times better than, this cheap, I don't know, they just hired some kid to play with Microsoft Word and Paint and make that monstrosity of an LA logo. But also the fact that their new head coach that we will talk about later forgot that they already moved, saying, "Oh, I can't wait to go to San Diego, coach, we're not in San Diego anymore." So it was just a whole shit show. So our Anthem of the Week, the American Idiots right now, are the LA Chargers. So moving on, it's your turn, Mr. Coach Ryan.
Okay, we're going to move on to our fearless prediction for this week. I'll start out with mine. I predict that the Pittsburgh Steelers will score some sort of touchdown, whether that be offensive, defensive, special teams. And this could be quite the fearless prediction, even though it's intended, jokingly. Seeing the Steelers kick their way to victory with Chris Boswell kicking an NFL record 6 field goals in the postseason game to get them onto the conference championship. So my fearless prediction is I hope the Steelers are able to score a touchdown this week.
All right.
What do you have, Corey? What's your fearless prediction?
Well, I'm going to go on the other side of the coin in the NFC game. My prediction is that the Atlanta defense, they looked pretty darn good against Russell Wilson and his subpar offense, but I think that they could be the kryptonite to Super Rodgers. That's my prediction, that they will get to him and that they will hopefully stop him. Vic Beasley might get in there a couple times and knock him down, but you never know with Aaron Rodgers. Right now, he's playing better than I think Michael Jordan in his prime, you could say. But that's my fearless prediction, Coach.
Okay, I like it. The Atlanta defense, they're really young, and I think Dan Quinn with that defensive, defensive mind, defensive genius. I think he has that defense playing about the best they have all season, and what better time now? So, I like that.
All right, I think that is our opening drive. So, you guys, we will see you in the second down.
Unlike the Seahawks in the playoffs, we're moving on to the second down. That's your news, notes, and predictions.
Why, yes, it is time for that second down, your news, notes, and predictions. And guys, we got a lot of news for you this week, mostly head coaching and coordinator position signings. But we're going to start off with another big move of a team, possibly. I'm going to let Coach Ryan inform you on this one.
Another team from California appears to be on the move, and the Oakland Raiders have filed their relocation papers to go to Sin City and be the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, that is some shocking news. I know they've been rumbling all year about it, but they finally are looking like they're moving.
I think maybe all it took is, another team to do it first for them to really get on the bandwagon and say we need to, relocate our franchise as well. But we'll see. We'll see just if that how that plays out.
All right. Moving on, the aforementioned LA Chargers have hired a head coach. They have hired Anthony Lynn, the former assistant head coach in Buffalo, to a 4-year deal. He will take the helm of the now LA, no longer San Diego Chargers. How do you feel about that one? You know a little bit about Mr. Lynn, don't you?
Very
little.
Very little, but again, with these, with the LA Chargers moving to a new location, it'll, definitely take a little while for him to get accustomed to that setting and, the pressure of being under that spotlight of, bringing a team back to relevance again. So we'll see how Mr. Lynn does with that. Another team from LA, the first team to move to LA is the LA Rams. They've also hired their head coach and the former offensive coordinator from the Redskins, Sean McVay. And he is set to be the youngest head coach in the NFL. He's 30 years old now, about to be turning 31. How do you feel about that sign, Corey?
Being a Redskins fan, he set that offense on fire with Kirk Cousins and Deshaun Jackson, all those guys. So they're taking this young kid and hoping that Sean McVay can turn Jared Goff into the next, Kirk Cousins, the next rising star. And I think it's a great signing. His grandfather was a former head coach as well. So he's got a lot of living up to that to do, but I think it's a great signing. I think LA's just, trying to throw a Hail Mary and say, hey, this young coach, he could, just turn it around like some other coaches have done. People that didn't think that they could be coaches at this age or just head coaches at all. So we'll just have to see how McVay does. And moving on, he's going to get a little bit of help on the defensive side of the ball as they have hired Wade Phillips, the former head coach of those Cowboys, but most recently the former defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. So what do you think about that other side of the ball there, Ryan?
I think, personally, that's a great sign for the Rams. Wade Phillips was, the man to credit for how great that Denver defense has been these past few years, and what better way to start off a new head coach, in that setting than having somebody who can run the defense and is proven to be capable on that side of the ball. So I think that's a great sign for the Rams.
Yeah, and I do believe when we heard that he wasn't going to be retained in Denver, you were pretty shocked, weren't you?
Yeah, because again, he's been that guy in Denver and build that defense to what it is. Certainly the players are a great testament to the talent they have, but Wade Phillips is definitely the genius behind that defense.
All right, well, let's see. We're going to Buffalo, so I'm going to let you take this one. Mr.
Okay,
Bill.
Buffalo has announced Leslie Frazier will be their defensive coordinator. He was a former secondary coach for the Baltimore Ravens. I know Leslie Frazier a little bit. The only place I know him from is being the head coach in Minnesota a couple years ago. Don't know a whole lot about him. Again, the Bills' defense is in better shape than our offense, so we'll see what Frazier can do. Like I said, the Bills' defense are in a better position, so I don't know if they need a real strong coordinator. It's just the players need to pick up the slack and start performing. But not a bad sign. I mean, he's a defensive minded guy, and I guess we'll see how it pans out.
All right, one note or bit of news I didn't write down, but right now it's being reported that the head coaching job for the 49ers, the last real opening that we know of for head coach, is pretty much for the taking for Kyle Shanahan of the Falcons. Of course, he can't take it right now because he's still leading the Falcons into hopefully the Super Bowl. So right now he is all hands. That I've heard that it's pretty much if he wants it, it's his. What do you think of if he takes that job?
Oh, poor Kyle Shanahan. I love you, buddy, but you need to stay in Atlanta, I think. I think taking that head coaching job for the 49ers would be the worst career decision of your life.
Well, that seems to be why Josh McDaniels never took it. He said he backed out. I don't blame him either.
Folks, I think there's a reason why the last coaching vacancy is the San Francisco 49ers. Nobody in their right mind wants to take over that team. I'd love to see Kyle Shanahan stay in Atlanta and continue to work with that great young offense they have, but ultimately, if he wants it, I mean, nobody's going to be fighting him for it. So,
well, maybe there will be another head coaching opportunity opening up. ESPN's Adam Schefter has reported that Colts Jim Irsay, GM and president, yes, had offered the job to John Gruden without anybody really knowing about that. But it got out, and it's also been reported that he offered Nick Saban the job. We know we talked about him last week. Mm-hmm. We don't need to talk about him ever again. But it's looking like Jim Irsay's trying to pull the rug out from underneath Chuck Pagano. What do you think about that one, Ryan?
Again, until you told me this and until I saw it on our sheet here, I had no idea. Pagano hasn't had the best past couple years there, but certainly trying to go behind your head coach's back and sign one of these two fools over somebody who's done okay for the franchise is kind of a joke to me.
And also John Gruden turned it down. He's not in the considering anymore. He's staying with ESPN so far. No one could meet his demands apparently. So yeah, I way to show your faith in your coach there. And also it's being reported that Jim Irsay is trying so very hard to get Peyton Manning to come on as an executive. The Colts right now look like a sinking ship, and if I worked Chuck Pagano, I would probably say, well, I'm going to jump off a board before this sucker goes all the way down, and I'm worse than the Jaguars and the Browns. So, but let's move on to some other things. Seattle is being investigated over not reporting a MCL injury to Richard Sherman over the weekend with Atlanta. Apparently, Pete Carroll went on to a radio show and saying that he did not know that it wasn't reported, but the NFL has started an investigation. Sherman does have an MCL injury. This could mean a fine or a suspension or loss of draft picks. What do you think about this, Coach?
Honestly, I don't think reporting injuries should be, granted unless they're a real serious injury, but like an MCL sprain, any kind of sprain or, bruise or something. I mean, these are, multi-million-dollar athletes going out there with, guys play through injuries like this all the time, and those injuries probably aren't reported. So I'm not necessarily standing up for the Seahawks here. I just think it's, I guess, stupid in general to have to account for some of these very minor injuries and incidents that come up. I mean, what's the big deal?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get really much. Maybe a
slap on the wrist,
$5,000 fine. But yeah, if it was a concussion and they let him play, they would probably be in deep shit because of how NFL has handled concussions lately. All the movies coming out and shit like that. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna see much out of this. This story will probably disappear pretty soon.
And in other news for the Seattle Seahawks, their cornerback Deshaun Shedd tore his ACL in that divisional game after Devontae Freeman put a pretty sick juke move on him, or a spin move, was it?
A spin move, I think. He spinned him right out of his own ACL. Yeah, but we'll talk a little bit more about Seattle in the fourth down. I've got some words, not very nice ones, about them. But this week we finally have, both of us need a soapbox, so you'll see that a little bit later. But with that, we're moving on to the predictions of the championship games.
Before Coach Corey and I announce our predictions, we would like to let all you viewers know that both of us are, since the playoffs have started, we have only
missed one game.
Missed one game, correct, or mispredicting one game, and that was the Oakland and Texans wild card game. Other than that, your two coaches are clicking on all cylinders. We're in postseason form. We're giving you guys these predictions that are to a T so far.
Well, it kind of helps when no upsets are happening. Well, I mean, some people consider Green Bay upsetting Dallas. We didn't.
I did not consider that an upset.
I thought that was, the Green Bay was acting like a number 1 seed, and
right.
Dallas was acting like a 4 seed or something like that. But
okay, so anyway, sorry for the interruption, we'll move on to this week's predictions
we gotta pat ourselves on the back a couple times.
We'll move on to our predictions for the conference championships this coming weekend.
All right, well, let's start off with the AFC game, Coach. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers going to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots.
Well, originally before the season started, this was my prediction for the AFC title game. After seeing how Pittsburgh performed against Kansas City, granted their defense, Kansas City's got a pretty stout defense, but it's New England. There was an article on NFL in the past 13 of the past 15 seasons, or something like that, something along those lines. There are 4 quarterbacks that account for the AFC's represent.
Well, all but one are 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco's in there once, but who cares about that? But
Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning account for those other appearances in AFC title games.
No, Super Bowl.
Or Super Bowl, that's right.
As the AFC champions.
That's right.
But, yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to stop blabbering. I'm gonna pick New England. After Pittsburgh's performance kicking their way to victory against Kansas City, if they pull those same shenanigans, they're not going to have to worry about a Super Bowl appearance.
All right. I am going to go on the other side of the coin on this one, Coach. The first one we've actually differed on this postseason, and I've got Pittsburgh winning. New England looked sloppy against Houston.
They did.
They didn't bring their A game, and if Pittsburgh gets that same team, they're going to run right over them. Le'Veon Bell's going to go right through the defense and score a couple touchdowns. It all depends on how New England plays. But you know what? Like what you said, the last 13 years, pretty much all except one, have been these 3 quarterbacks. No wonder Roger Goodell hates the Patriots. It's like, why don't we watch something different? everybody, I saw a report that the Super Bowl tickets went down by 20% once the Cowboys were eliminated because people wanted to see something different. And I hope to God Pittsburgh gets in there because I'm sick and tired of New England winning. That's not why I'm choosing Pittsburgh. I'm choosing Pittsburgh because right now I think they're a better team. They look more complete going off of last week. But with that, let's move on to the NFC, to the game I'm looking forward to.
In the NFC title game, we have the Packers going up against Corey's Atlanta Falcons.
Well, it's kind of hard to pick this one. I'm going to go with who I want and who I think. I think Atlanta's going to finally pull this one out, go to the Super Bowl. I know Aaron Rodgers is running on all cylinders, and it looks like he, could do anything. He could probably throw a 100-yard Hail Mary if he wanted to. But I think Atlanta at home, this is the last game in the Georgia Dome. I think Atlanta's going to put their 120% on the field. They're going to go out there or they're going to die trying. So I've got Atlanta going up against Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. What do you got?
Okay. I'm also going to take the Falcons here. My prediction, this will probably be the game of the year. This is going to be a game that we're going to talk about for years to come. I said it last week. Atlanta is just so impressive this year with what they've done. The defense has stepped up in the postseason, and their offense is just unparalleled when it comes to, position or talent at, every position.
Well, yeah. Can I interject just a little bit?
Oh, go ahead.
Just watching that Seattle game, remember what was the first or second quarter getting stopped on the 1-yard line, and they drove 99 yards against Seattle, the best defense in the NFC probably. So I think that shows a lot about who they are as well. But back to you.
Yeah. Again, not discounting Green Bay here. They, Aaron Rodgers, as I've talked about in past weeks, and the depth they have there at wide receiver. All the positions. Ty Montgomery's complemented very well for somebody who was originally a wide receiver starting the year, converted to running back. But I think it's Atlanta's year. My dad always says the Falcons are never going to win the big one with Matt Ryan, and this year I pray to God that they do so I can prove him wrong and say, Dad, I told you so.
Matty Ice is a man.
Anything else to add there, Corey?
Oh, well, I'm going to take a second to throw a shout out to one of our buddies that we were watching the game with. He completely called that safety against Falcons and the Seahawks. And we were all shocked. Oh, my God. They knocked him back to the 2. Oh, my God, he tripped and it's a safety. He called it, Matt. This one goes out to you, buddy. You called it just right on the nickel, man. But with that, do you got anything else, Coach?
No, I think we're ready for the third down, Coach.
All right, and it's finally time to go back to our roots. We're going to do a countdown. But what kind of countdown? Let them know there, Mr. Announcer Man.
It's time for the third down, and we're getting back to our roots finally with another countdown. This week, the coaches count down the top 10 scandals in football. Here you go, coaches.
Yes, folks, we're coming back to some countdowns. This time a little bit of a somber tone. We've got the top 10 scandals in football. Not just the pro football, but some collegiate football. Some of these kids went on to go to the pros, so, kind of made sense that we included them. We don't usually talk a lot about collegiate football, but, a lot of it does connect into the pros eventually. We'll be making a couple jokes here and there, but for the most part, we're just going to, tell you guys what happened, what was the result of it. But besides that, we're going to just give you the what we think are the top scandals in all of football. So, Coach, what's number 10?
Kicking off our countdown at number 10, we have the Minnesota Vikings party boat scandal. And for those of you who don't know, back in October of 2005, there were 17 members of the Vikings team that decided to rent out a couple party boats and have some fun. A couple of the noted names here were Coach Mike Tice, quarterback Dante Culpepper, wide receiver Nate Burleson, Bryant McKinney, and Kevin Williams. Now on this boat party, the Vikings actually flew in prostitutes from Atlanta and Florida to join in on the festivities, and
I guess they're a little bit more classier than those Minnesota broads. Oh, would you like me to go down on you, eh?
well, these prostitutes then went on to provide some sexual favors and ended
What
up.
else were they going to do?
There
Play
were
Scrabble?
there were photographs that were taken of some of the players having sexual intercourse with some of these prostitutes.
All right. What was the result of these?
And the
parties?
result, not so shocking. Coach Mike Tice was soon after let go. But certainly, man, it would have been a great day to be part of that Vikings organization, having fun on those party boats and meeting a couple nice ladies. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, got to get those classy broads brought in. I love it. They had to fly them in.
Yep.
Oh, we don't want these Minnesota whores. They're too big.
Hey, the Vikings are as classy as they get. They probably had first-class flights, hotel service for these nice ladies.
And then they gave top-notch service.
And I'm sure they did.
All right, let's move on to number 9. I barely want to even talk about this person, Colin Kaepernick, as we've been calling him lately. We put him here at number 9. He probably shouldn't even be on the list, but he created some controversy, as you know, this year, failing to rise for the national anthem, but instead felt that he needed to kneel, taking over for Tim Tebow, I guess, with kneeling. But Kaepernick got quite a few players to follow his. I'm not gonna, call it out and say it's terrible. It's a free country. You're allowed to do what you want to, but why? If you're this type of player, the face of a franchise, a very horrible franchise, I might add, but why would you? It just seemed like it was a publicity stunt, and it pretty much sizzled after maybe week 4 or 5. There's the incidents in Miami saying that the police wouldn't escort the team anywhere because if any of the players kneeled. It just created a lot of controversy that we could avoid. It just created more hate in a world that's full of hate. I guess he's doing great things, donating money and stuff. But when you're doing stuff like this, it just sends out the wrong message. He could have done it in a lot more better way than pretty much take a dump on a country that has given him, a life. If there wasn't, this great country that we have, he would have nothing. He would be nothing, which he pretty much is right now as a quarterback, at least. But Ryan, how do you feel about the kneeling?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. I suppose there's nothing wrong with it. It is a free country, freedom of speech, free to act in the way you want. I think the only problem is it could have been done in a more proper setting and not disrespecting, the American flag and people who have fought so hard for our freedoms. But we're not going to give Mr. Colin Kaepernick any more respect than he deserves. He, like you said, he probably shouldn't have made the list, but we didn't have...
Yeah, but I want to say another little thing. The other thing that really got under my skin was he started what young football players thought was a trend. High school kids kneeling just because they wanted to. They probably had no idea what the hell they were doing. They were just like, ha, this is cool. This is the new fad. We disrespect our country, man. It's like I said, it's putting out the wrong message to a youth that really needs a good role model.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that stands up for the good things that are in America. There is a lot of hate and there's a lot of bad going out there, but we need to look at the good. are only fed the bad by news and stuff like this, just looking at the racial aspect of it and everything, everybody, thinking it's a race thing and all that. But, there just needs to be a guy that comes out and says, hey, this isn't the right thing, putting out the good morals that we used to have as a country. But let's move on to number 8. Coach, why don't we show them?
All right, number 8, we had the Baylor rape scandal. And this was a couple of years ago, I believe.
A year or two.
A year or two ago, a number of women came forward and accused several of the Baylor players for gang rape, activity on these women. And the Baylor program probably tried to sweep this whole issue under the rug like nothing ever happened. And, Baylor's not one of those, prestige, they're not one of the big name schools, but nonetheless, this was an issue that should have been brought to our eyes, should have been brought to everybody's attention, and was kind of, just swept under the rug like it wasn't even an issue.
Yeah, if this happened at Notre Dame, this would have never been an issue of us not hearing about it. It's terrible that we live in a time that, athletes and gaining money off of college kids, even when they're not earning money, that, we got to protect these kids so we can make more money for our college. If we have the top athletes, we're winning games and we're getting more sponsorships. Oh, they did bad stuff. Well, don't worry. They're giving us, they're making us money. So we'll take their word for it. But, it's like that one, I think it was out in California, that story, what was his name? Brock Turner. Do you remember that name?
Sounds familiar.
The kid, the swimming athlete who could have been in the Olympics, raped a woman, and he got 2 months of probation, I think. We've got drug dealers going down for 10 years for serving an ounce of weed to someone, and we've got rapists going free. That just shows you another aspect of our country right now. But not to take away your number 8 spot here.
Oh no, that was about it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Of a college program when something as serious as rape and domestic violence, anything of that matter, should be brought to our attention, and is kind of just swept under the rug like nobody needs to be made aware of it. So Baylor's program is definitely going to be suffering these next few years, trying to build back up that reputation of what their school is supposed to look like.
If there's a reputation to save. All right, let's move on to number 7. Let's go to the boob of the year, Reggie Bush. Of course, he won the Heisman back in 2005, but he had to hand it back because of the allegations that came to light that he was being paid under the table. Got some goodies for his time over in the USC. Of course, this goes on to what I said, I believe, last week. I know a lot of that audio was missing. But, these college kids are putting their lives on the line every time they go out there, and they're not compensated at all. So I really don't see too much, bad coming from a college kid taking a couple bucks. The fact that they gave him a house and a car and all that crap. But, I remember when that came out, a lot of people started petitioning, hey, Vince Young was number 2. Can we give him the title? And Vince is like, no, I don't want that damn thing. So the Heisman in 2005 is actually vacated. There is no holder of that title. Ryan, what do you think about this one?
It's controversial. I guess that's why it's on our list. I mean,
it's higher up there. That's why.
I think you covered pretty much everything. Everything I was gonna talk about there. So with that said, we'll move on to number 6, and that was the Ray Rice with his domestic violence action against his wife in that elevator that we all were made aware of.
Apparently, we all saw it, but Roger Goodell didn't.
And that incident was back in 2014. Just a real blatant. They probably got into an argument, and security cameras captured Ray Rice striking his wife. Later apologized for everything. I think they're still together, aren't they?
Yeah. Also, didn't it show him dragging her out of the elevator or something like that?
I think so. I don't know if she was unconscious and he was trying to drag her to safety, but
from him, maybe.
Either way, Ray Rice, just a very shameless act by somebody that I always, I don't want to say look up to, but somebody that was always one of my favorite players to watch on Sunday, and then pulling shenanigans like that. I did think maybe the Cleveland Browns would have been desperate enough to sign him a couple of years ago after he got reinstated, but with this new trend of domestic violence that's been going on in our country and more or less all over the world, I don't blame any team for not wanting to take a shot at Ray Rice.
Yeah, we have him to thank right now for the new policies in place in the NFL for domestic abuse. So, Ray Rice, it's just, I don't know, some things can be forgiven, and I guess and beating a woman is not one of those things. So, I doubt we'll ever see Ray Rice suit up. Maybe in Canada. They're very forgiving people up there, but
or maybe the lingerie football league. Maybe he can be a ref or something. Who knows?
I don't know. They'd be afraid he'd beat all of them. You didn't score. But I remember it was, I believe, last year he said that he would play for free, just to donate his entire contract to like woman shelters and stuff like that, and still no one wanted to bite. I think Ray Rice is forever done in the
I would agree.
NFL. All right, we are halfway done, and let's move on to number 5. It is my turn, and it's good old Spygate, the first gate of the New England franchise on this list. Let's see. In 2001, the Patriots
2007.
2007, I can't read your handwriting.
Sorry.
In 2007, the Patriots caught videotaping the Jets of all teams. The defensive coordinator signals from somewhere, but it was from an undesignated location. I believe it was Eric Mangini, the head coach of the Jets at the time, who had worked with Bill Belichick. He knew the inner workings of the franchise. Kind of blew the whistle on that one. I believe he said that that the Patriots did some scouting, quote unquote, air fingers up there on that one, of the practice of the St. Louis Rams that they played in the Super Bowl that year, 2001, I believe. The one where Vinatieri won it, and that's where Tom Brady became a god in New England. But that's where it all started, apparently. But this was a big one that started, I guess, Roger Goodell's hate of the New England Patriots. But, of course, they were Mr. Belichick was fined $500,000. And the Patriots as an organization was $250,000 fined. And, of course, they lost a first-round pick, I think, since they've made it back. It just shows that why everyone hates the Patriots. I don't even think they need to spy on any team.
Nope. And, again, like Corey said earlier, the Jets of all teams, granted, I think that's
even back then.
Back then, when Mark Sanchez, the butt fumble himself, had led them to, I believe, 2 or 3 AFC Championship games. But even then, I mean, the New York Jets, any team in general, I mean, Spygate and the Cleveland Browns would have even been, a very sad occurrence. I mean, needing to get a leg up on, competition in the NFL. And like Coach Corey said, that's one of the many reasons that the New England Patriots are one of the most hated franchises in the league.
And just to show you that they can come back from even this kind of crap after that season of, all that. That was the season that they went undefeated. Well, damn near undefeated, but regular season undefeated. I think they got over it, and they showed the league they didn't need to cheat. So I guess that's it on number 5. What do you got for number 4?
Okay, we'll move on to number 4, which we have the Saints Bounty Program, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. Back, it probably would have been probably 2012, 2013 seasons. In the divisional round, the New Orleans Saints defense targeted Kurt Warner on several hits. And in the conference round, the game after had targeted Brett Favre on several hits. Intentionally trying to injure both players, and this was a plan that was coordinated by the defensive coordinator Greg Williams, and of course the head coach Sean Payton. I believe Joe Vitt was the assistant head coach. You have something you wanted to add, Corey?
Just to clarify on the teams, it's been reported it was 2009, the year they won the Super Bowl, all the way to 2011.
Okay. All right.
Just to get some of our facts there.
All right, but the two big incidents, again, were Kurt Warner and Brett Favre, two, definitely Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Like I said, Greg Williams was the man behind the plot, as well as Sean Payton undoubtedly said he didn't know anything about it. But in the end, the Saints were fined $500,000 and were forced to relinquish their second-round picks in both 2012 and 2013. Jonathan Vilma, one of the main alleged
the linebacker,
the linebacker from the Saints, was suspended for the entire 2012 season. And then Sean Payton, of course, was suspended a year. Greg Williams was suspended indefinitely, although he was reinstated a couple years back and was the defensive coordinator for the Rams. So just a very...
I've got 2 more suspensions for you, Coach.
Okay.
Mickey Loomis, the general manager, got the first 8 games of the 2012 season.
Okay.
And the assistant head coach, Joe Vitt, was suspended the first 6 games of that season.
Okay.
Just to throw that one in. Also, the Vilma suspension was the longest for a player at the time.
Okay.
So, just to throw a little more fact in there for you.
So we can see how terribly that affected their franchise, and moving forward at that point. Anything you wanted to add there, Corey?
No, you covered all the things that I would have covered. It's sad that this kind of stuff happens, and sometimes that wanting to hurt another player just for money, it's kind of sad, and they kind of got what they deserve.
And I vaguely remember some of these incidents, just pure clearly, undermine tactics, going low on some of the quarterbacks, intentionally trying to hurt them. Kurt Warner and Brett Favre being two, at that time, 2 of the greatest, 2 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, was really, a very sad look for that New Orleans franchise. So, I think they got what they deserved, and frankly, I think they could have been punished a bit more. But, when Roger Goodell's in charge of the NFL, slaps on the wrist are nothing but ordinary.
All right, let's move on to the top 3. We're going to move on. Number 3 is of course, everybody remembers the Michael Vick dogfighting scandal. Of course, Mr. Vick was found out that he was holding a dogfighting ring at one of his compounds, or one of his buildings that he owned. He I believe they said that he really wasn't too involved with it. Family members were the ones running it, but he knew about it, so therefore he had to be punished. Of course, he was suspended indefinitely, and then later they found court proceedings, put him in jail for a couple months. Since then, he's done nothing but trying to get back his reputation. He had such a promising career at the time, leading the Falcons to the playoffs, and to show how important he was to that franchise. They went rock bottom that next year with I think it was Culpepper they used as a quarterback. They used quite a few guys that year, but they had the 3rd overall pick, and now history is history. Matt Ryan is now the head quarterback there, but Mike Vick, of course, coming back as a Eagle. I bet you were happy about that. But there are articles out there of Michael Vick owning a dog, and a lot of animal activists, they don't think that's the right thing. The guy's done his time. He did the crime, he did the time, he's trying to get back. I think everyone deserves a second chance, especially with stuff like this. I know that there's so many dead dogs buried on his compound. It was just sickening to think about, for you pet owners. Me being a newer one, I just have my first pet this year, and now, if I think of anything hurting my little kitty, I just don't want to even think about it, But, Mike Vick, right now, I believe he's going to probably retire. He could have had a better career, but I think it's time to let Mike Vick, off the... Oh, man, I don't want to say it. Let him off the leash on this one, for lack of a better phrase, folks. I'm sorry. That was really bad. But, Ryan, what do you think about all this?
Originally, when this story first came out, it literally made me sick to my stomach because Michael Vick was, one of the players I idolized and, looked after. And after this whole incident...
And you have a little doggy, too.
I do have a dog, and... I think many people can relate when this incident happened. It was one of the most disturbing, occurrences in recent memory. And like Corey said, I believe Mike Vick did his time. It was, a savage,
despicable crime.
Chain of incidents. Don't get me wrong. I will always... I will never stand up for somebody who, projects animal cruelty or abuses their pets. I'm not saying that at all, because it was certainly, a sick act. But I believe Michael Vick has done his time. I believe he's made strides to become a better person, to improve his character, and to improve people's perception of him. And I think he's probably a free agent right now. Definitely, if he's not retired, he surely will in the next year or so. But certainly a big incident that really affected his career. I'm sure if he would have stayed out of trouble, I'm sure a Super Bowl ring wasn't too far behind for Mike Vick. He's an incredible athlete. I don't think anybody can discredit that. It was just his moral character during that time that a lot of us won't be able to forget.
Yeah, and to show that I believe Atlanta is past this and they've forgiven him. I believe it was the last game of the season for the Falcons at home. I think it was during halftime. Him and another player were in a car riding around the inside of the stadium, kind of like a parade, and everybody cheered him on. So I think time does heal a lot of wounds like this, but it was still a very horrible thing, and that's why it's number 3 on our list.
All right, we'll move on to number 2, folks. Again, we're seeing another trend with another Patriot Gate in here, and that's none other Dan Deflategate.
Oh dear God.
And that was a couple of years ago, as many of you know, in the AFC Championship game against the Colts. which I'll add a little side note here after we go through this incident. But
Okay.
the Patriots, of course, Deflategate, for those of you who didn't know,
How could you not know? I mean, it's the only thing ESPN talked about for 2 years.
But the Patriots were fined for using underdeflated footballs. There's a set pressure that the NFL footballs need to be, and I think the footballs the Patriots were using were, I think, maybe a pound or two lighter, something like that. I don't know the exact stats on it, but the results of this gate, where the Patriots were fined $1 million, which was an NFL record for fine against a franchise. Brady got 4-game suspension. Eventually, he was ruled 4-game suspension twice, but only served one of those 4-game suspensions.
Mm-hmm.
And then their first pick was taken away. Their first round pick was taken away in the 2016 draft, and then their 4th round pick will be taken away in this year's draft. And with all of that said, I believe the Patriots are cheaters. They're one of the teams and franchises I hate the most in the league. But with that said, watching that AFC title game, they put a drubbing on the Colts. I believe it was a 40. Don't
look it up.
Don't look it up, because it was something that was it was like 40-something to 7. Granted, the Patriots are cheaters, but do not
all that.
Do not tell me that a difference in ball
Andrew
pressure.
Luck with a full ball would have been fine.
Don't tell me that the pressure of the football was the only thing that led to the Colts looked like shit that game, and they got hammered. The ball pressure did not matter. The Patriots were dominant in that game. Yes, they cheated, but no, it wasn't the only reason they won. They won because the Colts are trash, and the Patriots played like the Patriots do.
Yeah, I have a minor hypothesis about one Tom Brady. If he was ever taken by another team, do you think he would be as hated as he is? I feel that, he would be a fantastic player and everybody would love him if he played for someone besides the Patriots. Because it's the Patriots. It's those cocky sumbitches up there in the Northeast. We win all the time, man, yeah. I think it's just the culture, but that's just a little thing I've thought about lately.
Quite possibly. I could vouch for that.
Yeah, imagine him as a Brown. Do you think he'd still be as great as he is? Yeah, it's a hypothesis of mine. The culture of a team could make a person who they are. But back to the countdown. Yeah, I was sick and damn tired of hearing about this. I mean, but I gotta call you out.
Okay.
Last year in our fantasy league, everyone knew that Tom Brady was going to get suspended, but it got overturned. But someone here drafted Tom Brady in his team. Thus, Coach Ryan, who was that who hated him so much? Who drafted him last year?
Oh, that was me.
Yeah. Hey, you hate him, but you'll take the points, won't you? Huh?
Strictly from a fantasy perspective, folks. He was suspended for the first 4 games. I think I drafted him in the 7th round. He was my 3rd string quarterback, so
he became your 1st string.
Strictly from a fantasy perspective, my friends know I'm one of the biggest Tom Brady haters out there. So, it hurt for as a person, right? Right.
All right, I think that's enough bashing of the Patriots. I mean, the rest of the world does it for us. But let's move on to the worst scandal of football. You guys probably could guess what we were going to put at number 1. Of course, it's the Penn State scandal. It's just a very sickening scandal. What was his name again? I try to block out those memories.
Jerry Sandusky.
I mean... if you guys didn't know, he not only was accused, but was found guilty of molesting many young men at Penn State. Bring boys in and in the showers and stuff like that. And what more shocking, I believe, to people was that head coach Paterno pretty much knew about most of this going on, and he just really didn't do anything to stop it. It's more like keeping the peace, but that gives him no right to, I know a lot of people are like, oh, Joe Paterno, he's still a great guy. He was so racked with guilt, it killed him.
Well, he's dead now.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people hated the fact they put a statue up at Penn State for him. Oh, he's a supporter of a child molester. And I'm not giving him any outs as well, but I think we need to stick to the person who did it, the person who deserves to rot in hell. I mean, there's a special ring in hell for guys like this that prey upon children. I mean, I don't really want to get into it that much. That we're not, this isn't the Law and Order SVU podcast, which there probably is one like that. Talks about child molesters all the time. But, this is deplorable. It really didn't have much to do with football, but it really had to do with Penn State. And right now, as we stand, they're looking a lot better. They did pretty good. Did they win the Big Ten this year? They were pretty much. They were. I think
they
third.
had a decent season.
I know Ohio State won the Big Ten. Then it was Michigan, and I think Penn State came in third. They did pretty good. That franchise is finally starting to prosper again. People aren't like, oh, I don't want to go Penn State.
And I will give a shout out to Bill O'Brien, the head coach of the Texans, because he took over that program after that incident and really brought that program back to relevance and
yeah, he made it about football again.
Yeah, and kind of made people forget about the deplorable acts like Corey had talked about. So Bill O'Brien, big golfers clap to him for for any coach that brings back a program from any kind of act like that pretty much defames your entire university.
Yeah, not just the football program. The whole university was probably pretty somber at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But, folks, that's our top 10 scandals in all of football. We hope you guys, I don't want to say enjoyed, but you guys found our list pretty thought-provoking. And, But with that, we're going to go to the fourth down.
Well, there you have it, our countdown of the week. Now we're going to move on to the fourth down. But don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Fourth Down Podcast and on Facebook at the Fourth Down Countdown Podcast page. And don't forget to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Now let's get back to the coaches and shut this sucker down.
You heard it, folks. We're going to move into the fourth down right now. We want to know if you guys are going to go for it or kick it away on our Fourth Down Countdown podcast this week. Feel free to leave us comments, any suggestions of, scandals you might have picked instead of us, or, any suggestions you might add to the list we had. We'd love to get your guys' feedback. Again, just because we make a list doesn't mean that is, the top 10 and that's how it should be.
The be-all, the end-all, it is not.
We want your guys' feedback. We'd love to hear from you guys, and your feedback just gives us more, more support to keep going and bringing this podcast to you guys. So with that said, we're going to move into our soapboxes for the week, and Corey and I, believe it or not, each have one this week. I'm going to let him start out with his.
Why, thank you, Coach. This week, my soapbox is on the Seattle Seahawks and the way they behaved in a losing effort against the Falcons. I was pretty much shocked and sickened by how they acted in the final moments of the game. Atlanta acting as classy as a team can. They were up big, 16 points with about a minute or two to go. They get the ball. Devontae Freeman gets free and gets down to the 1-yard line. Seattle has no more timeouts. So what would any team, probably the Seahawks or New England, someone like them, they would probably just try to score and, get it over with. But no, Atlanta was the classy act. They did not run up the score. They kneeled down and the game was over. But, of course, Seattle wouldn't take that as a loss because they tried to rush the line and caused a couple penalties, which stopped the clock for even more time. But it was just sickening to watch them act like babies in a losing effort. After the game, Michael Bennett cursing out a reporter who was just doing their job, just cursing him out because he was so upset at losing. It's one thing to lose, and then it's another thing to lose with grace. They definitely did not do that. They were just acting like spoiled little brats who didn't get their way. It looks like the door for Seattle is about to close on them ever getting back to the Super Bowl with the team they have now. The age number is getting up there. The Legion of Boom isn't as boomy as it was. But I saw nothing but crass young little babies, acting that way in a losing effort. And it just, went. I'm not trying to kiss Atlanta's ass, but they won gracefully and they didn't try to shove it down Seattle's throat. They won, and that's all it was. It was, winning, and then they moved on. Seattle was, like a little kid not getting its way. So I just got to say how sad it would be to be a Seattle Seahawk fan right now. But with that, I'm going to let you take over the box, climb up on here, sir, and give them what you got.
All right, my soapbox is I'm going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and in more specifically one player, and that's Alex Smith. And first off, I want to say this isn't a soapbox intended harshly at Alex Smith.
It's just a talking to.
Yeah, it's just a little talking to, just a little bit of motivation here.
Alex Smith, come sit down right here. Uncle Ryan has some words for you. I'm sorry, I'll let you go.
All right. Well, Alex Smith not only in that game against the Steelers, but all season long, I've seen him throw nothing but underneath throws, 3 or 4 yards. Yeah, you have a lot of good athletes on, your receiving core with Tyreek Hill, Macklin, Chris Conley. You got your back, Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West. But I don't know if it's him to blame or if it's the play calling of the offensive coordinator, Andy Reid. I'm not sure. But if you want to get to that next level, you need to let Alex Smith throw the ball down the field. He's got playmakers there. Travis Kelce, the aforementioned names I talked about. You have, for the Kansas City Chiefs to get past, to move on in the playoffs and be a better team, you need to let Alex Smith be that franchise quarterback, be the guy you believe in and trust, with the game on the line. And I don't feel with those 3 or 4 yard, slant passes, dump downs, screen passes, I don't believe they're, like I said, I don't know if it's the play caller to blame or if it's Alex Smith's confidence, but something has to change for the Kansas City Chiefs to be able to move on as a franchise. Anything to add to that?
Oh, I watched that game a little bit, and there was quite a few times that Tyreek Hill just got loose. He got out there in that backfield. No one was covering him, but, of course, Alex Smith wasn't looking that far down to throw a bomb to. So, yeah, I understand and, what you're saying. So, all right, I think that's it for the week. What do you think, Coach?
I think it's a pretty good episode.
I'm very happy with it.
We had a couple laughable scandals and a couple not so many.
Very serious.
But nonetheless, we hope you guys enjoyed this week's countdown. Look for another one coming next week for you guys. I think we'll plan on doing another countdown next.
No, it will be the debut of
that's
a
right.
segment we have not done before called the Butterfly Effect. But we will let you know a lot more about that next week, folks. But for Coach Ryan, this is the Fourth Down Countdown podcast. And just watch some football, listen to some podcasts, and have a great time, guys.